No questions are too basic. AV Educate's mission is to help through knowledge. People move from stagehand to
AV Tech Talks, House Rules. Join us on AVE Live, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us on Zoom. Watch on Facebook or YouTube from the AV Educate page, or register as an attendee for the webinar. Live Q&A. Our guest will lead us through a guided demo and conversation about tonight's topic. We will take your questions and comments throughout the show. Don't wait until the end. Get your questions and comments in early to shape the conversation. We don't know it all. We're human and don't claim to know everything. We may demonstrate or discuss one way to do something, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. If you found another way that is easier or yields better results, please share with the community so we can all learn together. Follow AV Educate. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and have a library of content on YouTube. Join us on Zoom for AV Tech Talks and to become a member of our community on Discord, where the conversations, the learning, and the sharing continues. We are where you are. Place your phone over the QR code to come learn more about AV Educate.
All right. Thank you for staying with us. Welcome back to AV Tech Talks. Apologize for the technical difficulty. One of my computers just decided to stop working. And of course, it's the one we capture from. So, yay, technology. So, today we're talking about Isadora. We are super excited. Of course, we've got Andy Carluccio back, who's going to show us some stuff. And of course, we have Wilson-Spiro, who is going to really give us the full demo. So Andy, obviously, you know a bit about Isadora. You've shown us a lot of demos already. Do we have anybody else who uses Isadora here on the panel? Tlaloc and Ray. Awesome. Can you guys tell us maybe a little bit about how you're using Isadora? I'll take Ray first if
All right. So I'm actually using Isadora in some very basic ways. I have decided to try to at least create every Zoom OSC command that there is into one control panel so that I was able to explore all of the different things that Zoom OSC can do. I do a little bit of video with it, not a whole lot. And even though my background's in audio, I do absolutely no audio here at the house. everything audio that we do is within computers, so haven't explored the audio portion of it yet.
Cool. And then Tlaloc, what are you doing with Isadora?
Well, I mean, I've been using Isadora since about 2008, and we did a lot of projection design and device theater in New York with Jay Cooker. And then I learned it and kept using it and kept using it and kept using it. And now this past fall, I worked on a big theater show with 10 people and a lottery of who was going to play what halfway through. And we used Zoom OSC and Isadora, and mind blown. Like it was a massive patch. Actually, the show was so big I had to use I think 4 show files because there were too many cues. So it was big. And then we're using it again coming up now for a show, another streaming show. So we've been pushing the envelopes of Isadora a bit to deal with the pandemic and the new world that we're in, to expand outside of theater into the world that many of you are much more familiar with than the streaming world. So
awesome. I mean, that sounds pretty cool. So great. So we have some experience here on the panel. And I would love to just maybe kick it over, unless Omar or Bodhi have something, or Disa.
I want to get us started. I'm very interested to learn more about it. We've been doing some stuff in the background, and I've been very intrigued by what I've been seeing. So I'm ready to get firsthand experience from you guys on this.
Awesome. So yeah, if you have questions, start getting them in on the chats. And Elle, take it away.
All right. Hi, I'm Wilson-Spiro. I work for Troikatronix, the company that produces Isadora. And I run the beta testing program. I do a lot of QA. I do customer support. And I make content to share with users. And that's what I'm doing today. So let me just share my correct screen here. Oh, when I share, Zoom goes away. That's extremely not helpful.
We see your share right now.
Yeah. I just wish I could see everyone. So this is a example of a file that I've provided to users. It's just 9 Beeple clips in a row. And this is got a big old go button and a back button, and you can cycle through with the scene select control. And this is the control panel view, and I've got the commands here for people who don't know the shortcuts yet. And if we look at the actors, every scene is just a movie player and a projector actor. And this is my output. So it's just every scene is a different movie file. and you can cycle through very easily.
And projectors, so those are just those would be like outputs from your machine if you had them. Like if you had physical outputs, you could assign those. And
Yes, that would be in output stage setup. And this is the stage setup window. And I've got stage 1, which is the destination for this projector actor. And you can see it's assigned to display 2. You can see the resolution of the display. And in this little window, I can do things like if I had a triple head to go, instead of sending this output to the full size of the display, I could say send it just to the left half, or send it to the top left quarter if I had a quad head to go, or data path. So there's a lot of flexibility, and you can also add multiple displays to a stage and arrange them however you like. So if you want to do vertical stacks, if you want to do edge blending, you just overlap them and it'll do the blend for you.
oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really nice for edge blending, and then you can just tweak it a little bit. You can click on this to mess with the curves. It's much better demonstrated in person than virtually, because it's a physical light thing as opposed to virtual. So this was just a very, very simple example of a simple control panel that's just forward, back, and scene select. And how often would you like me to stop for questions?
No, I think you can keep running through for now. We don't have much lined up yet.
All right.
Maybe you can show us how does somebody get started? If someone wanted to start a project, from scratch or.
So let me just split this control panel so that this little line along the bottom, it may be hard to see, but this little dark line, there's a break here now. So if I click on any of the scenes over here with this continuous dark line underneath them in the scene list, it'll have this control panel, but I've split it between for the next one. So the next one does not have a control panel. And when you open a fresh Isadora file, it'll just look like this. It'll be completely blank, tabula rasa, and you can click on these different bins of actors. And the way I like to describe actors is little electric Legos. So for example, I can put in a video in watcher. And then let's say I want a crop actor, and I can connect them just by dragging them to each other. And now I've got my output already, and I can crop it however I like. And let's see, I can most of the actors, it's fairly apparent what they do. Their names are pretty good in that sense. It's not very arcane. Can usually figure out what they do. So I can choose to desaturate this. And aside from video actors, you also have things to change parameters programmatically. So if I wanted to fade this projector up from nothing, I could put the intensity at 0. And then over 3 seconds with an envelope generator, I can take it from 0 to 100. And if I didn't want to have to click on this, I can take a keyboard watcher and set it to whatever key I want with a single quote and a key, and then ending in a single quote, and just connect this to the trigger on the envelope generator. And then if I press the T key, it fades in my video.
And you could do the same thing with the parameter of the desaturate.
Yes, I could. I could set up another one for that. And I could increase the number of segments. So we go from 0 to 100 over 3 seconds, and then over 1 second, we go back to 0. And let's make that Y. So the vast majority of actors have inputs that you can use to manipulate them. A lot of the sources don't necessarily have those, like video in watcher. A lot of the outputs usually have a lot of them, like the projector actor, and then video effects will have 1 or 2, or they can have a lot, and things for calculation and control can have a lot of inputs, and you can do math and logic. So for example, if I wanted to count how many times I press the T key, let's say after I pressed it 3 times, I want it to trigger. So I've got the keyboard watcher, and I'm going to set it to up, actually, because I like it better. If you hold down a key, you continuously send a trigger. But if you set it to up, you can't double trigger that, because it only happens once when you release the key. So this is my best practice for shows, is setting these to up so you can't double trigger anything. So now every time I press the T key and release it, it's going to add 1 to this counter. And the counter is going to output to the comparator. And when we get to 3, it's going to trigger the fade in.
So Elle, you've said a couple things like keyboard watcher and actors. Can you maybe talk about some of the terminology that Isadora uses for people who may not have used the program before?
Yes. So things that are looking for input or bring input into the program are generally called watchers. So video in watcher it's looking for a live video source. Keyboard in watcher, it's looking for your key presses. Mouse watcher is looking for the vertical and horizontal position of my mouse, which I can also use to control things. So connect the vertical position of my mouse to the intensity of the projector. And then everything in here is an actor. Each little node, each little electric Lego, we call them actors.
Cool. Thanks for clearing that up, just so if anybody hasn't used the program before could understand. Everything's called something different other places. But it looks so easy to just draw lines between the things you want to connect. Can you go into maybe some of that workflow and how that works?
Sure. Let me go to my next file here. So actually, I want to close that other one.
And folks, if you have questions, please get them in. We'll take a break for some questions in a little bit, but get those questions in now. Anything you want to know about Isadora?
So this is a modified version of one of our example files, and it deals with alpha masks, and at the end of it I put in some NDI and OSC stuff. But at the very beginning of it, it's just about live capture. So it's a good introduction to that, and it's often what people want to do with Isadora for live theater is live video input. If you're not doing what I showed in the first example, which is just straight video playback of canned media. So you go to input live capture settings and you'll get this window. And currently there are 4 channels available for live capture. If you need more, you can merge your videos into a single channel with hardware and then crop them to chop out each of the video feeds.
And for this
Currently,
crowd,
we
probably
have
use NDI, right, or something like that as well.
Yeah, you can also bring in video from Spout on Windows, Siphon on Mac, and NDI on both platforms, which I will get into a little bit later. But for now, I've just got channel 1 enabled, and my video in watcher is looking at that channel 1. And you can tell that it's capturing because it's got this trigger output. So if I attach a counter to that trigger output, and I'll set this to wrap, you can see it's just constantly triggering. So it's sending a trigger every time it gets a new frame. And if I stop live capture, no more triggers, no more frames, no more counter. And in live capture, you can set the resolution you want from the live feed source. You can choose the driver, Blackmagic or Apple. If you've just hooked something up and you're not finding it in this list, you can scan for devices. And you can also choose your sound input and then tweak some sound settings. And down here, you've got your feedback of your audio capture, and you've got a little preview window for your video. So now that we've confirmed that the live capture is working, this projector is what is going to output to your stage, and stages are what we call outputs. A stage can have a display assigned to it, but you can also have a virtual stage. So for example, I could remove the display from this, and now it's not going to a physical output, but it still has a resolution. I can still change that resolution. I can still flip it and perform all different things like sending out Siphon NDI or directly to a Blackmagic device. But for now, I'm going to add this display back in. And virtual stages are helpful for, well, here's actually a good example. So I've got a macro in here, which is just a whole bunch of actors crammed into one actor. If you think about patching as circuitry, this is sort of like a microchip. It's just a bunch of programming crammed into one little space for convenience. And these are just showing the text on this virtual stage. And this virtual stage won't go to a physical output. It's just here to give instructions in this case. Another good use for virtual stages is you can use the get stage image actor. And now this is a video source. And so I've put things out to a stage and I can pull them back in. I can put them through video effects and then maybe send them to my normal stage. That just went white because feedback loop, but you get the idea.
Can those virtual stages be output as NDI?
Yes, every stage can be output as NDI. So
that's
all you have to do is check this little NDI box on any stage you want as an NDI output. And then, I mean, this will show up in anything on your computer that can detect NDI, but it's just easier to show you in Isadora. So this is an NDI watcher. And here I've got my NDI sources. Display 2, virtual stage 1. So I just enabled NDI output for both of these stages.
okay. Cool. No, that's very cool. Being able to have a virtual stage and output it as NDI, I can see a lot of use for something like that.
And it also works for anything on your network. So for example, if I were to turn on NDI HX camera, on my phone. Then that shows up as a live feed source. So in all of 15 seconds, I created a wireless live feed.
That's cool. Now, I just saw you touch the one box to the other box and then a line appear.
Yes. So that's hot linking. So you can connect the top level of actors together. So just the top output and the top input by just bumping them together so that you don't have to click here and then click there.
It's like they give each other a little kiss and then they've got a line. That's awesome.
Yes. And additionally, with video actors across the top, if I were to put this crop in and then do something and just decide, I really don't like the way that looks, I can just delete it and it reconnects the two.
So that when you dragged it in, it didn't even have to kiss the other two. It just had to get in between the kiss.
Yep.
Yeah, when the line is horizontal perfectly, it'll go right in.
That's amazing.
It was at
You
an
can
angle.
snap them right in, and then if you delete them, it reconnects them along the top.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah,
That seems like
with the
a time saver. So that's awesome.
With the 4 live in watchers, is there a way to have an actor control a swap to a different camera in any of those, or do you have to always go to the settings?
Let me see.
Everything that has a channel assignment, right, needs to be statically patched. Is that kind of the philosophy?
Yep.
Is like MIDI, OSC, and physical hardware from the top carousel need to be pre-chosen, but anything that has an actor can be hot swapped?
Yeah, we have a feature request in to create a control that will allow you to link this to the control panel and then select from a list of things, which is also helpful for
And I actually was
MIDI
asking about
actors.
the non-NDI version of that, the actual in watcher.
Oh, the in watcher. Oh, yes, yes, you can completely do that. So my maximum is going to be 4 because I've only got 4 channels. My minimum is 1 because there's no channel 0, and then I can connect anything I want to that and change it that way. And
But you couldn't like reuse some of the 4, right? Like if you couldn't assign something to channel 1 and then change what device that hardware is, right?
That's what I was asking.
no, you can't do that.
Right.
You'd have to go into live capture settings and change which device is selected here. But I'm currently on my boss about increasing this number of channels because it really is just arbitrary at the moment.
Yes, please.
He said there's no reason that it can't be more. It's just he has to add the infrastructure for it. It's just copying this again and again and again and then testing it.
So Al, let me just jump in here real quick. I don't want to get us too far ahead here. I have a very, very simple one. If we can go back just a little bit before we get to the questions that we got piling up over here. I see this left to right flow going on. Can you explain to me a little more about what I'm looking at on the left-hand side, kind of the timeline here, what am I looking at in the screen when it comes to programming? If I'm a new user, how do I familiarize myself real quick with what I'm looking at? I kind of get the nodes thing. There's some questions about that are we can get to in a second, but I'm a little confused. Obviously you're a master at this program, but for someone who's looking at this new, what am I looking at the top left corner where it says Quartz Composer plugins? And then below that, what is that section used for? Is this a timeline down here? What are all these Q1, Q2, Q3 sections considered? The area where you're creating content, what is that considered in Isadora? How do I know what's what?
We have a series of video tutorials which should be able to be linked in the chat, I believe. I think I provided that link ahead of time, which really dives into intro to Isadora and will introduce you to the user interface. But a quick intro is starting from the top left and working our way around. We've got this search filter, which you can search down actors that way, the same way that you can double click in the scene editor and search this way, just by typing.
Okay.
And if I get rid of what I typed there, these different icons are indicators for little bins of similar actors. So we've got generators, mouse and keyboard, calculation, control, scene control, communications, user actors, which are these. It's when you put a whole bunch of actors yourself into a little microchip.
Got it. And just to clarify, actors is what I'm thinking of as a node, right?
Yes,
Same thing? Okay.
it's the same thing. And you can also favorite actors so that they show up in this favorites list. And then video effects, which is the vast majority of what people use. Video sources, video renderers, projector is the most used one out of there. And then you can also bring in GLSL shaders, and you can write your own GLSL shaders in Isadora. So if you know how to do that, you can play around with GLSL shaders inside Isadora and do all sorts of fun things.
I like that. So right at the top, that top left corner is a big part of the start of my workflow when we're in Isadora, and then everything below that kind of is what I'm utilizing. So walk me through the next part. So once I pick, let's say, my source and my input and my output here, the next part is where you've been working in right now, majority, which is with all these actors here and connecting them and making them do different things with different effects and different layers and stuff like that. This bottom row down here that I keep seeing, this Q1, Q2, Q3, what exactly is that?
This is the scene list. So every, the one that's dark blue with the green line under it is the one that we're currently in, and it's just a container for actors.
Okay.
So currently we're looking at this container full of these actors. If we go to the next one, you see it's just different actors. And you can do all the normal editing things. You can copy this, you can duplicate it, you can delete it, you can rename it, so it can be whatever you want. And you can undo changes to it. These queue numbers can be changed. Scenes, queue numbering. So you can renumber queues. You can also go to the scenes menu, and there's a MSC queuing options. The screen share thing for Zoom is in my way, so I can't exactly see where I'm putting my mouse. But so you can just enable receive MIDI show control queues. And then if this were hooked up to a network with a lighting board, I can give each of these scenes a queue number that corresponds to a lighting queue. And whenever that queue is fired, as long as the board is outputting MIDI show control, it'll bring me to that queue in Isadora.
So I got to say, pulling from different resources in my mind, from different programs that I've used, just that alone has given me a really good grasp of everything going forward. And I'll definitely dive into some of those videos that we're posting in the comments there to get the community. But I want to let Chris jump in here now. We got a couple questions, and I want to get some of these questions out that are piling up. So Chris, I'll let you go ahead and take the floor with the first one.
So the first question comes from Randy Regis on Facebook. He goes, can you explain what can be saved with the free version?
The limitation of the free version is that you cannot save. But other than that, you have access to absolutely all the features of Isadora. And that's our model, rather than having a free version that you only have access to some of the features, where there's like a really high paid tier where you have to pay to get NDI or something like that. If you have a license, you can save. That's the only difference between having a license and not having a license. It also means that if you're a designer or you're doing installation work, you can put your license on a computer for while you're setting it up, setting up the show, setting up the installation, and then you take your license off it and you run the show in demo mode because it doesn't need to save anymore.
Awesome. Randy also asks, what are the computer system minimum requirements to run Isadora?
There should be a link for that. I don't know if I provided that one, but if you go to the Troikatronix site and go to help, you can find the system requirements there. It's not something I have memorized, unfortunately. The current version runs on Windows 10. and Mac OS 10.11 through 11.x. So we don't support Linux. We also don't support Hackintoshes officially. You're welcome to try, but if you have problems, we can't help you because we can't pinpoint problems on systems that are Frankenstein machines.
Be nice.
I mean, Hackintoshes are
You're
wonderful
right.
and powerful, but like, we just can't provide official support for them. Also, because it would technically be illegal because you're not supposed to make Hackintoshes.
Fair enough, and very well noted. I'm going to keep going on here with the YouTube side. So Mike Johnson asks, is there a reason they're called actors versus nodes? I was confused when I started watching videos on Isadora thinking that they were talking about stage actors.
They're called actors because the creator of Isadora, Mark Caniglio, worked very much immersed in the dance and theater scene. And so he created this as an artist for artists, and he was working with lots of actors and decided to call the nodes in this program actors. And it's been around for 20 years, so they've been called actors for 20 years, and it's kind of hard to change it now if we wanted to.
No, that's a good reason. Listen, this is a meaning behind it, which is great, honestly, and it's a good reason, honestly, because he created himself and he's got his purpose. So Randy asks another one on here. He says, "Can you export a diagram or report of the actors?"
A diagram or report of the actors? No, but you can send the file to whoever you want.
Okay, Randy, if I misrepresented Randy, please let me know in the comments and I'll bring it up again. But I think these are you had one you had to bring up.
We certainly do have a lot of questions. Hello, and thank you everyone for submitting, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We do have a question from Mark Carter, who's here with us on Zoom. And you might have given just a high-level overview of this. Maybe this is a deeper dive look that he wants, but he's asking if you can demo a projection mapping instance for us.
Yes, I can do that. So it's going to be, you just have to imagine part of it because there's no physical projector here. I'm not projecting onto an object. But every projector actor, if you just double click on it, it says you're about to create a new projection mapping for this projector actor. Do you want to continue? And you press OK. And you get this ISIMAP window. And over here, you've got your view, which you can switch between input, output, split horizontal, or split vertical. I like the split vertical because I like to be able to see everything that I'm doing. And then you can have different slice types. So there's rectangle, triangle, grid, and composite. And composite can have multiple sub-slices. So this composite is made out of a triangle, a circle, and a rectangle. And you can see, since they're not fully overlapping anymore in my output, I've just got a little triangle here. I've got a
very
dented
creative
circle there,
areas you're working with.
and I've got a rectangle over here. And you can also hold the Command key on Mac and the I forget key on Windows. And you can add points wherever you want along these.
I believe it's Control on Windows.
That would make sense. And you can have different blend modes for each of these. You can change the opacity of them. You can change the scale and rotation. And I can change this one to subtract. So now it's going to subtract from the other subslices, which is helpful if you're trying to create like a border around something. When I've been doing aerial projection and I want to project onto white Marley, but not the rest of the stage, I'll use the subtractive mode to get rid of the edges. And you can change path options and various things. So that's a little demo of EasyMap. And my favorite way to do this actually is I set up my show computer and then I remote access it with my laptop, and then I just walk up on stage and put my face right next to what I'm mapping onto and use my laptop to control the show computer. So I can really get like pixel perfect mapping onto whatever it is I'm mapping onto. My favorite thing was just a pile of bricks. I mapped onto each individual brick.
And you also get 3D controls, right? So you can choose to warp into 3D space by adding more pixels to an area and subtracting pixels from another area and squishing and squashing like that, right? That's on the bottom view. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And you could build
you can also manipulate this.
For the virtual world, you could build a map in a Photoshop file and then drop it in and then just use that as your way to map a number of different outputs in that view. If you wanted to shape things that are not squares, et cetera, and then feed other sources to it once you've done the mapping.
Yes. I worked on a show where there was a fairly complex wall with all these different elements, little roads and trees and mountains. And the tech working on that particular show took a picture of it from a good angle and then loaded that in with a picture player and then put that into EasyMap and then used composite slices to create a slice for each individual little object that was part of the wall so that we could send, green to the trees and purple to the mountains.
A number of times I've hung upside down and put my camera in front of a lens of a projector to try to do that trick.
Right. Well, and coming up, I'm doing a show where the director doesn't want any squares. I think they're a little zoomed out or something. And so I'll build a map for myself ahead of time in Photoshop and then drop it in and then just use that to get all of the different outputs working the right shape.
Well, we do have a ton of questions, gentlemen, so I don't want to dwell on this one for too long. And I'm sure that the team here would be happy to continue the conversation if there were any more questions from Mark or the crew here about projection mapping. So Don Hartley asks, what would be an example of using the envelope generator in Isadora?
The envelope generator. So I believe I demoed it. So envelope generator most often is used for fade-ins and fade-outs. So if I want to take the intensity, let me replace this projector because it looks like trash right now. Because I mapped it there. Now I can see me again, although I'm not sure that that's better. So if we're talking about just a normal theater setting, normally the actors are talking or whatever, and then at some point during the scene, you want to bring up the video, let's say slowly over 15 seconds. You can then trigger this and very slowly it'll fade your video up.
Now, of course, with Zoom, we're kind of not so easily able to appreciate the nuance of it, but it's super smooth.
So, next question.
Sorry about that. You know what? I had the wrong thing cut to Facebook. I apologize. So, can you just quickly run that through one more time? They were seeing you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'm sorry that they had to see me. So in a normal theater setting, you'd start with the video off at the top of the scene, and the actors are talking, and eventually there's a line that's the cue for a video to come in. And I've connected the output of the envelope generator to the intensity of the projector. And it's got one segment, and that one segment you can see here in graphic format is going from value 0, which is 0, to value 1, which is 100, at rate 1, which is 15 seconds. And so when I trigger it, it's going to take the intensity from 0 to 100 over 15 seconds.
Cool. Thank you for grabbing that backtracking. Thank you. Mark Harder here on Zoom had asked, Does the PC version of this work better than the Mac version, or are they equally wonderful? Or what deficiencies are known when using one or the other?
My advice is if you want to do like a lot of really heavy video processing, you're probably better going with a PC. Mac is completely capable of it. It's not, I mean, this is a computer advice question, not a software advice question at that point. But like, depending on how heavy your show is, you may just want to go Windows because Windows machines can often handle bigger shows like that better. Mac comes with the benefit of there are more audio actors because we can pull in a whole bunch of the Mac native AU actors and use them, well, AU audio units, and make them into actors. So there's more control for audio on Mac. And on Mac, you also get these inbuilt core image units, which personally I don't recommend using because they're like old Mac infrastructure and some of them are unstable, but you can do some interesting things with them. And there's also on Mac some interesting CI actors, QC, Quartz Composer, which is a Mac only thing. Let me see. So now I'm ASCII art, right?
Is Quartz Composer still a thing?
Exactly. So CI and QC are benefits, but they're also like a little bit ancient. So use at your own risk. On both Mac and PC, you can load in free-frame plugins from wherever you want and GLSL shaders. GLSL shaders work the same completely on Mac and Windows. Free-frame, you need to make sure that you have a free-frame or a free-frame GL plugin that is 64-bit, because Isadora is 64-bit, and free-frame plugins are also different for Mac and Windows. So you can't just take a free-frame plugin from Mac and put it on Windows. But with the GLSL shader you can, and with all the vanilla actors you can. And all of the siphon actors on Mac. So I can get a siphon feed from any of my stages in a different file I have running in the background, and pull that in as a video source. And if I were to save this file and reopen it on a Windows computer, this changes itself into a spout receiver. So when you migrate files between Mac and Windows and you're using Siphon or Spout, it'll switch out for the equivalent on the other computer.
Cool. Okay, got it. You mind taking a few more questions, and then we can. Oh yeah, there's a handful that have piled up here.
Sure.
Yeah, cool. Randy Regis here on Facebook says, does the software have the ability to insert customized background using green screens, etc.?
Yes. So let me see. This is 1 sec. Sorry, I'm trying to pin myself. Yeah, okay. So let me just make a new scene here. And I apologize for the quality of this secondary video feed. I only have one good webcam. So let's go to this display. And just, this is a screen capture actor, so I can select which of my displays I want as the source. I can also type in a window name or get the name of a window from this drop-down list. And it's got crop controls built in. Let me go back to this right one. So I'm just going to crop this until I get this feed of myself with green. And then I can chroma key. Boop. And then let's just find green. Green is gone. And sure. Let's use a Resolume picture. So now as the background, I can have this little Christmas Resolume image. So
Cool.
yeah, screen capture, chroma key, background, easy peasy.
That's super cool.
And it'll do. Will it also? Can you also do like alpha layer overlays and stuff? Alpha channel overlays.
Yes, if you've got well, yeah, I've got. So this is a PNG, so this should work. So I'm going to set the blend mode on this to transparent. And I'm going to set the blend mode on this one to transparent. Additive, if you have things overlapping, they add to each other. And transparent, if you've got something with an alpha channel, which this appears not to have. Let me get this back. Okay, so here I've got alpha. Let's try to do this a different way. So I've got, yeah, transparent, and I'm gonna pan this one. Or I'll make it wider. Yeah, that'll be fun. So I'm going to set this one a layer above. So the way that layers work with projector actors is I describe them as stacks of paper. So you've got 10 down to -10, with 0 being the default in the middle. And if you're looking at pieces of paper from the top and they're sitting on a table, if they're 10 stacked all on each other and they're all the same size, you can only see the one on top. You can only see number 10. If you cut a hole in the one that's in the 10th slot at the top, then you can see through that hole down to number 9. And if you've got a whole bunch of holes in all of the different ones, you may be able to see all the way down to -10. So that's my analogy for layering in Isadora.
And then while you're working on that, I'm just curious. So I just watched you basically duplicate those two things. Is that just a simple copy paste, or do you
Just
do
everything that works in Microsoft Word, Command C, Command V, Command Z, delete. You can, duplicate. You can also right click on just about everything and get options for undo, cut, copy, paste, paste over, duplicate, clear, select all.
Now, what's the difference between copy and pasting and duplicating?
Duplicating is just one less keystroke.
Oh,
So
okay.
if I select stuff and I duplicate it, it does that. If I select it and then I copy it and then I paste it, it does that.
Got it.
It's just one extra step if you're copy pasting.
And just one gotcha that I have dealt with before. If you want to change your blend type and you've already projection mapped, then you're going to need to go back into your projection mapping in order to change it, because it kind of locks it out. So just remember that.
Yeah. So once you map something, this blend input is no longer valid, because now every slice in here has its own blend setting. So the blend on the input of the actor has no meaning anymore, because everything in here can have its own setting, and this just won't do anything anymore because these each need to be told what to do. Because you know, this one may be additive, this one may be opaque, this one may be transparent. And there's no way to set that from the outside with just selecting one option.
To loop back to Ed's original question, there is an alpha mask actor. So if you wanted to do true alpha masking, you can just plop that in, just like you can do a chroma key.
Yeah,
and
like
you can
this.
combine them. Oh yeah, exactly. Just exactly.
Or
like
this. So
Right.
this is just a shapes actor that's white. It's growing and shrinking. And I've got my video in watcher going into an alpha mask. In the foreground, I've got inverted video. In the background, I've got normal video. And for a
Trippy.
mask, I have this white circle. So
Seems you're
wherever this white mask is, you're going to see the foreground. Wherever it is not, you will see the background. And so you can do all sorts of interesting things.
Beings, you're all talking about the shape masker now. Can you do irregular shapes with the shape masker as well?
The way to do that would be to create the irregular shape in EasyMap, actually, because the controls on the shape don't allow you to, you can choose the number of facets. So you can see I'm getting fewer and fewer facets, and now I'm down to a triangle. And I can change the width, and I can change the height, and I can change the scale, the horizontal position, the vertical position. I can change the rotation. I've got a weird little control called odd insert, but the changes that you make are going to be, the vast majority of them are symmetrical, so you can't make a fully asymmetrical shape the same way you could with so here, let me make a new scene here.
I generally, like, at least in my workflow, I'll make it in Photoshop and bring it in as a picture and then deal with
Yeah.
it there. You know.
That's probably easier, but you could do something like this, where I'm just going to set the scale to immense. So I've got a full white thing. And then I'm going to make my weird shape. Let's make a weirder shape. So now I've got a Pringle. And then I can do get stage image on that stage. And then I can send this to my other stage. And I can take what I did in this scene, which is just this, these three actors, so that I have an alpha mask. So now this white Pringle shape is going to be my white alpha mask. And everything inside it is going to get video inverted, and everything outside of it is just normal video.
And what's nice about what you just showed, so you took elements from a different scene, I guess that was, right?
Yep.
And copied and brought them over. So if you build something, you can just very easily transpose it to another scene if you need to.
Yeah, and often when I'm trying to create something that I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do, like what's going to look good, I'll create multiple versions of the same scene. Like before I make a big change, I'll duplicate the scene, and then I'll make changes. And if I don't like them, I have the old version of the scene. And one more thing that's possibly interesting about this is these little points. So I can publish the X and Y coordinates of these points. And I can also publish the intensity of this, the red, green, blue, or just all the intensity, the scale, the rotation. And then when I do that, you get new inputs on the projector actor that allow you to control them programmatically by connecting anything you want to them. Actually, let's go with a wave generator. Make it slow so we don't get dizzy. So now I've got a slowly rotating alpha mask.
Extremely slow, but cool.
Yeah,
Still very cool.
Can make it a little bit faster. How's that?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
That's cool. So we have a bunch of questions stacking up. So I want to.
Sure. Let's keep going.
Yeah, we can.
I'm here all night.
And I want to talk to the panel because I know Andy might have something he can maybe show us as a use case, and maybe Ray or Talalik has something they could maybe talk about use cases of stuff they're building too. So, Chris, I think you have the next question.
Yes. So here on Zoom, Mark Carter said, on your version, it says the NDI Watcher is a beta. I have 3.0.8 FO9, and I can't seem to find it. Is it not in the current version?
There are external plugins. I believe I also provided that link, the link to the plugins page, or the add-ons page. It may have been changed since I provided that link, but the link will be the same regardless, where you can download screen capture, NDI, Grapher, ArtNet. What are some other? So there are some plugins that we provide outside of the normal program so that we can update them more easily without. So if the NDI actor was in Isadora itself, every time NDI does something silly, we would then have to release a completely new version of Isadora just to update this one actor. So we keep some of the actors outside the program and they're installed separately so that we can provide better updates. And also there's a system in Isadora that can check these plugins when you launch Isadora, and it'll tell you whether or not we've got a newer version of these plugins available.
Awesome. Randy Regis on Facebook, he's always full of questions, says, is there a mobile version of this software for tablets, or can you connect it via a web interface?
There is not a mobile version for tablets. It's only supported on Windows 10 and Mac OS 10.11 through 11.x. You can, however, remote control it with TeamViewer from a tablet or a phone if you're running it on a computer.
Or you can build a control surface in something like TouchOSC.
Yes.
And have all those sliders and faders and knobs and buttons, make it in that app, and then have it talk to Isadora, and then you get the interface that you need on that mobile platform. But then the video processing core is on that powerful machine.
Yeah, I was once working in a space in New York City where I just really didn't like the lighting board. It was really old, and so I just brought out my computer, a DMX USB interface, hooked up a DMX patch, and then I built myself a lighting board in TouchOSC. And I was just running around focusing lights with my phone.
Take that, ETC.
I'm just going to jump in here real quick. So I just want to make an announcement to YouTube and Facebook. It's 8:10 right now. We got about 40 minutes left of the show. Well, really 30 minutes. We're going to try to do a 10-minute kind of a little wrap up or kind of cool down here. Al, the community senior, a fountain of knowledge. You're doing great in communicating what's going on here. We got tons of questions for you. They're definitely receiving you. They're definitely listening to you. They're definitely responding. So I want to get through these as much as I can. If we are off topic and you want to go in a certain direction first, let us know. But the question I have for you right now is from Chuck Wojak from Zoom. Could I use Siphon Out to go directly into a Zoom as a virtual input?
Yes. So also on that separate downloads page, we have an application that we developed called Siphon Virtual Webcam. And so Siphon Virtual Webcam, I'm just going to go into my stage setup, and I'm going to say, I want this stage to output to Siphon as well as NDI. And then when I open Siphon Virtual Webcam, I have a list of siphon sources. And let me just find the right one. There's the right one. And I'm going to stop screen sharing for a moment just so I can change my video. So now...
Is there a spout equivalent for that in PC, or?
We do not have an application for that, but there are virtual webcam applications. There are other virtual webcam applications for Mac, and there are similar things for Spout for Windows. And there's gotta also be NDI versions of it.
OBS is well, NDI Tools has the virtual input, and then OBS can do the conversion for you.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to see with my virtual background here, but I've got that stretched out image of myself from this Isadora scene that we're in. There we go. You can see. I've just got my Isadora output straight as a webcam into Zoom.
So I got one that might be perfect for tonight. Mike Johnson on YouTube asks, when is the next update planned, and can you say what features will be included? I hear there's going to be more audio features.
Yes, we actually just released an update today.
Oh, today out of all days? What a coincidence.
Yeah. So the update included multi-channel audio routing on Mac and PC for the sound player actor, and we're going to be rolling those out into the movie player actor in a future update. And the future update is also going to come with Python support and a native version of Isadora that works on machines with ARM chips. Currently, the current release of Isadora will run on Big Sur Macs with the M1 chip in emulation mode, but we're trying to make it run natively.
So today's a good day. You're on AV Educate with AV Tech Talks team. You got an update that came out. Today's been great. Again, I'm talking too much, but I'll let Diza take over because she's giving me the look.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. So Amar Mashruwala, I'm having an Omar moment with the name there, asks from Facebook, so is this mostly for projection mapping? Like, what would you say is kind of the main function of this tool?
The main function of this tool is whatever you want to do with it. We had one user who hooked up a webcam looking at her fish tank, and she was tracking the position of her goldfish, and different areas had different targets. And when the fish hit different targets, it would play different MIDI notes. So you can do,
Awesome.
you can do all sorts of things. I've used just the shapes actor and virtual stage and get stage image and envelope generators to make a little penguin that flaps its wings and blinks. Like, it doesn't have to just be for projection mapping. It is great for projection mapping and edge blending and like traditional theater use. But one of my favorite demos is there's a device called a makey, which just simulates a keyboard when you complete a circuit. It's got a ground wire and then a bunch of other wires that you can tell it, this wire, when this one and the ground are connected, something completes the circuit, and humans conduct electricity, so you can use humans to complete the circuit. It's going to press the K key. So I clip the ground wire onto my earring and put on a glove and bite into a banana with the other wire in it, and I can start a show that way if I want.
That's awesome. Andy, you got something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Steve Jobs had a quote that, the computer's a bicycle for the mind. And I think that Isadora, for me in my own workflow, is the best sort of representation of that philosophy in software. I've used it for everything from, standard theatrical projection mapping to robotic installations in museums, show control through, what I do with Zoom OSC. But I've also used it for things where I need to make a user interface for a client to demo like a wireframe of what I'm going to make for another program. I'll spin up Isadora and make it there. I've used it, and whenever I have a problem to solve with my computer, I will open Isadora and try to lay out spatially what I'm thinking and how to do it, because it's got the video processing, the in-out, the scripting, the node-based workflow. It's just a place I can go mind dump and figure it out. And I might end up making the final thing in a different app, if it's a piece of software and I'm demoing the UI for a client or something like that. But holy cow, it's shown up in more places than I thought it ever possible. Embedded controllers, all that kind of stuff. It's really incredible just how flexible it is.
Okay, great. I guess I'll continue on. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Amar asks the second question on Facebook. Can this be used as a cloud production system such as Sienna Cloud, or is this only for effects?
Andy, go ahead.
So I've tried a couple of things with Isadora in the cloud. The thing you have to know is that it's got a minimum dependency of OpenGL 2.0. And so your non-GPU instances sometimes don't have that. So double check, which instance you're using. But it can run in the cloud with a GPU instance behind it. And then the same sort of principles apply. You network your EC2 instances together, and you start flowing NDI through that, and then Isadora should be able to see that just like your vMix would. And again, that we can talk later about how to use this in video production workflows. What role does vMix play, Isadora play, your capture, contribution, zoom, all of that stuff. How do they talk to each other? But in the cloud, it can do a lot of that stuff. You just have to make sure you have the right size instance for what you're trying to do.
I'm gonna switch back to my normal webcam. It's weirding me out seeing a stretched version of myself.
Okay, so I'm going to throw it over to Ed to ask a few more follow-up questions.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Disa. So Chuck Wojak here in Zoom asks, have you seen any stability issues, anything to be cautious about or plan for?
Have I seen stability issues? That's my job. I'm supposed to find those stability issues. I can say that when we find them, we prioritize getting rid of them. And before I started working for the company, this is actually one of the reasons I started working for the company, is I was working on a show, and in tech at one point, the file started crashing, and my operator was a first year in college and was freaking out. And I was like, don't worry about it. I'll email Mark, and by before rehearsal tomorrow, he'll have a fixed version for me that won't do this, or he'll tell me what I'm doing wrong and it won't crash. Tomorrow it won't crash. So we, especially when people are under the gun, we prioritize solving problems for them.
I'm sure Andy might be able to speak to how quickly things can get done with Isadora as well.
Absolutely phenomenal. What I'll tell you on the stability side is that most of the time I only experience crashes when I'm editing things. When I'm running a show file back without making changes to it, I usually don't experience crashes. Alec, I know you've had some experience with this kind of thing.
Yeah, so a lot of times, sorry about my mask. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry about my mask. So just want to say that I did have also experienced crashes while editing, but here's the thing, because that has so much control input, you can do MIDI show control, you can do OSC. So when we run the shows, we try to not have anybody touch it, but other machines, and at that point it gets really stable. Like if you're having a light board run it, or if you're having another machine that isn't doing a lot of work, triggering your scenes, it just settles in and runs the show. This is my experience.
Got it. Sorry. So I hope that answers your question, Chuck. Seems like it's pretty stable. So I'm gonna keep moving on here. Sorry, I lost my spot where I was. There we go. Another question from Chuck. Can you easily build shows offline with no parameters for inputs not available while building?
Yes, you can use stand-in media instead of a live feed source. And I do it all the time. I know that Andy has built entire shows without access to the actors. He's got a whole bunch of green screen people waving, and he puts them in different places I'll let Andy speak to it.
Yeah, exactly that. We, especially because of how COVID has affected our rehearsal schedules with people internationally, even, it's not always possible to build a show with access to the talent. So what I do is I just have a little switch that's this looping video of an actor in front of a green screen that plays over and over again. I position them, I put them in my world, I do the color, whatever I have to do, kind of roughing it in, right? And then I hit a switch when I'm in rehearsal mode, and it just routes that video input to the live capture input. And now all of my nodal processing is the same. and I just had a little user actor sitting there switching between the pre-record and the live input. So that even mid-rehearsal, if that actor goes on a 5, I can pop back to my recorded inputs and fix what I saw in that last scene.
Yeah.
And
so
when
just to demo
Sorry.
that quickly. Let's use the shapes actor. So I've got my video in watcher as one input on this selector, and I've got a shapes actor as the input on the other. And I connect it to a projector, and I can just switch between feeds as much as I
So
want.
this routing functionality is super, super powerful when you're doing things that are, this is what I was talking about before when we had a literal lottery for what things a particular actor was playing. So then you make a routing table that when a certain thing happens, you route to a different place. And so all of that is just very, very powerful to have in your toolbox.
And yeah, so router and selector, they're two halves of the same coin. Selector lets me choose which video input I want. The router is letting me select which stage I want to send to. That one or that one. And the routers and selectors also work with values and text. So you can route or select any of the available data types.
That's something we haven't touched on too much, and I think it's worth making clear. That little line that gets drawn connecting two actors, that line is capable of transporting video, audio, values, all sorts of different things. Now you have to enforce, make sure that the sender and the receiver are expecting the same type in order to draw that line. But a lot of these actors have incredible reuse, just like, router and selector. If I want to send calculations to different places, it's the same actor as if I want to send video or other data like that. In that sense, it's incredibly flexible. And you can see like the type management in Isadora, it takes a little bit of time to figure it out, but once you've got it, holy cow, like you can open up, the actors become, if you thought it had one value for video, it's got 15 values for the other data types. It's incredible.
Yeah, so.
And this is all just copy and paste, do whatever you want within the window, essentially?
Yep.
It's brilliant. It's nice.
And if you can't figure out how to do something one way, you can usually figure out how to do it a different way, which is one of the things I like about it. There are so many ways to skin a cat with Isadora. So,
a million roads lead to enlightenment.
You can start to recognize the programmers of the Isadora patches that float around on the internet. It's like, oh, wait a minute, that's those lines that are all crooked. That's probably Andy. Oh, those lines that are really straight and perfectionist. It's probably somebody who works there. It's good stuff.
So I've just connected. I've got Bob in value 1, Jerry in value 2. I'm just feeding that text into a text draw actor and then a projector, and then I can select which piece of text I want.
And so when he connected the text type to that actor, it changed the type on the selector. And that's instead of saying video GPU, it says, text, and then it's going to route that through to that type of input.
Yeah. So actors that have it can be a little subtle, but you see all these nodes, like all the inputs have little blue balls, and this one is green. It's because that one can mutate. It's mutable. Another good example is the gate actor, which is useful for logic. You can make it not pass values when a condition is false and only pass values when the condition is true. But so this starts out as a value, but if I connect it to something with the video type, it mutates to video. And when it's video, I can't connect text to it because that doesn't make sense. It wouldn't mean anything. But if I take a calculator actor or a calc angle, I can then mutate this to a value. And if I disconnect it there, I can connect it to something with text and it'll mutate to text.
Great. Why don't we still have a bunch of questions. I definitely want to get to a couple other uses. So let's try to maybe speed round a couple. Chris, I think you got the next couple questions.
Yes. So Mike Johnson from YouTube, for set global values, is there a way to deal it within a scene on its own? The way I got around it was to put it inside a user actor and use the user actor on off with a trigger. Is there another way to do that?
I think he actually says a way to delay it within a scene.
Oh, delay. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes. So I actually made a user actor for dealing with these sort of things. So there are certain actors that will send their values when they enter the scene. And the specific actor that's being talked about here is set and get global values. So every time you, so I can name this 1 and this 1, and then without physically connecting these, they're now connected. I can change this one and it'll change the output here. So I could connect that to a whole bunch of things if I wanted to. I could have multiple instances of this get actor connected to things all over the patch. And then I've got one central place where I can change.
You're setting a global
parameters.
Variable for the entire project.
And what the person who asked the question was talking about is when I enter the scene, it's going to send those values. It reads this and it'll send it out once. So if I put a counter actor here to let us see this, so the output is 0 right now, and I'm going to connect that to add. So if we leave and come back, when we entered, this changed to 1 because it output the value once. And in some cases, you might not want it to do that. And so I've got a little delay gate user actor that I use for not just get global values, but for anything that I want to have just a little bit of delay before it sends something. And so inside this user actor, I've just got an enter scene trigger, a trigger delay on a very short timer. So this sends a trigger and you can set the delay to whatever you want. So now it's a 5-second delay. If we wait 5 seconds, we get a trigger out. So it's on a very short delay. And what it does is it toggles this gate on. So it enters the scene and it turns on this gate, but the gate starts off. You can click on just about any, the name of just about any parameter, and you get this property inspector, and certain properties can be initialized. So initializing is what you want this value to be set to when you enter a scene, which is helpful for things like fade-ins and fade-outs. If I leave a scene in the middle of a fade-out during rehearsal, I don't want to come back to that during the show and have it be faded out 50% instead of it's supposed to be at 100 at the top of the scene. So I can initialize the intensity at 100. And in this case, I'm initializing a gate off. So when you come into the scene, the gate is off. The get global values actor will do its thing. It'll output once, but this will be off. And then a fraction of a second later, this gets turned on, and then further changes are allowed through. And that's how I get around that one, that tricky situation.
Awesome. Another one, Dave Brady right here on Zoom said, would the difference between duplicate versus copy and paste be the former is local to a stage, the latter can be used to move actors, etc. to the new stage, or rather cues, not stages?
So the stage is your destination. So these little containers full of different actors, these are called scenes. And yes, copying is how I would move all of these. I copied there, I paste here. Whereas if I'm in the same scene and I just want the same thing again, I can duplicate it. And you can also, if you have 2 Isadora files open, you can select a whole bunch of scenes and copy them, and then click the other file, click in the scene list, and paste them right into the other file. So you can recycle whole chunks of your show programming.
Okay, Omar, I think you got the next question.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in and say I was muted there while I was trying to talk to myself. Anyways, so the next question I got here is from Mark Harder from the Zoom side. Can we get into the use of Isadora for controlling Zoom OSC and some of their more basic presentation operations, or rather between cues, not stages, for the above in parentheses?
Yes. So let me skip to the end of this file. So if you want to use this with Zoom OSC, you're going to want to go to Zoom OSC settings, which is, it'll look like that first, and you have to click.
We're only seeing your Isadora display.
Nuts. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So screen capture can't capture Zoom OSC.
You have to set the setting for it to pass through.
Okay.
But yeah, we've shown that interface plenty of times. So just so you're aware, it's not there.
Okay.
All right, so I'll move on then. Is that what I'm understanding correct?
No, we can show you.
No.
We can still show the demo. We just can't show
Oh,
this
okay.
particular
I
setting.
just can't show the settings thing. So
Got it.
in the settings for Zoom OSC, you want to set it to subscribe to all, set the output rate to 100 milliseconds, and set the transmission port to 1234. And to send OSC to Zoom, this is going to send a chat message. You want to leave. You want to get an OSC multi-transmit actor, and leave this set to localhost. Set the port to 9090, which is what Zoom OSC uses, and set your address. And so now when I click this, everyone in Zoom chat just got hello world.
Yes, we
And
did.
doing the reverse. So I'm going to go to communications stream setup, and I'm going to auto detect input. And if someone could just type something in chat. Yay. So it showed up, and I'm just going to give this a number. And these channel numbers work the same way as live capture. They're going to be actors that say, what channel do you want me to look at? And in this case, it's the OSC multi-listener, and the base channel is 1, and the number of channels is 5, because there are 5 values associated with this channel. If I were to get a new channel and then renumber them, it would start at 6, because it reserves 5 channels for this, but the starting channel is 1. So starting channel is 1, number of channels is 5, and now I get the user in this channel, and I get the chat in here, and I'm just formatting it, sending it into a text draw actor, and then the text draw actor is going right out to stage. So anything that anyone types in Zoom chat right now will show up on my Isadora stage. And you can use this for chat parsing. So, for example, if someone would put tag you're it into Zoom chat. And then we get a response from the chat bot.
That's incredible.
That's great.
And if you just tell it you're sorry.
Whoa.
That's great.
Fantastic.
I like to make silly examples. And I've got a little bit more logic in here.
The audience that was on Facebook, obviously, and YouTube didn't get to witness that, but yeah, there was a bunch of chat messages, and a chat bot was talking to all of us. So it's pretty,
so I'm searching for. I've got this JavaScript actor, which has got some JavaScript in it, that's searching for the text that I feed it. So the first one is looking for tag you're it. It doesn't care about case. And if the message has the words tag you're it in it, it'll output 1. And then this comparator will say, is the incoming value equal to 1? If yes, send a true trigger. And if it's true, it sends this message to everyone in Zoom chat.
Could I ask a favor? Could you zoom in a little bit, or make the words on the just a little bit bigger, because some people are having a little bit of a hard time seeing it.
Sure. Is that better?
I likely is much better. Yes, thank you.
There you go.
So this file is also, I provided a download link. So if it's not in the Zoom chat already, it will be available, I'm sure, on the Discord and afterwards in association with this talk. But it has all of this file and a number of other files. So if you can't see it during the talk, you can always go and actually read it yourself. You don't need a license to open the file. You just can't save.
So if anybody's looking for that file we shared at the very beginning of this talk, it's probably the first link that we shared out to the community. That's what that file that he's referring to. We will share it again at the end of this time, and it'll also be in the event side as well. For anybody looking on the after side for the recording sides, it'll be in the event page. There'll be a link there to go to the Dropbox, which will give you access to this file you guys are watching. You can kind of follow along as well at home, which is what we're referring to here. Also, I got another question for you if we're ready to move on. The next one I got is from Eugene Palmer on Zoom. He asks, can you track a change from one scene actor through following scenes, such as a projector corner pin setting?
Yes, there is a better way than tracking it through multiple scenes. So a method for tracking it through multiple scenes is I can take a projector actor, and let me zoom in again. The zoom is by scene. So if I come back to the scene, it's zoomed in. If I go to this one, it's zoomed out, which is helpful if you want different zooms in different scenes. So I've got a projector actor, and I can cut it and I can put it inside a user actor. And if I create mapping in it, let's say I've got, it's a common use case in theater. I've got to map my projector, and I want that in my entire show. So I'm going to create a user input, which will create an input on the outside of this user actor, and I connect it to the projector, and it's got this projector is mapped. And when I leave this, it's going to say, do you want to save changes to this? And I say, yes, I want to save and update all. So now I've got a thing that I can feed video to, and I can put this user actor in as many scenes as I want, and it will have the mapping. And if I go into any of the scenes and, tweak my mapping, let's move this a little bit because the projector got bumped. And now I'm going to save and update all. And that just updated across all of my scenes.
And you can do that with any type of node, is that right?
Yes, you can put whatever you want in a user actor and save and update all across everything. The sister of the user actor is the macro. And the only difference being that if I put something in a macro and then I go to leave, it doesn't ask me to save and update all. So macros are useful for if you got a whole bunch of programming in a scene, like I wanted all of this just, a little bit more neat. I could call this one 2 and this one 1. Kind of overkill in this case because it's just like a little bit of patching, but let me see if I can find
something. I can show you where it's really appropriate.
Yeah, it's like when you get into this stuff and
also you can put your user actors into the toolbox on the left, and that's pretty powerful too, because if you're doing what he was talking about in terms of a mapped projector, you put that over there with a name, and you can just use that every time, and then you're going to have you're going to have a very powerful way to keep things kind of moving across your scenes.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I have a whole bunch of user actors because this is also my show computer. And you can see that I've named these according to the displays and their location and things. And I've given them control IDs to connect them to a control panel.
Definitely at some point before we end the program, we definitely should talk about controls. I know that this audience is going to care a lot about control interfaces for programs and shows and things like that.
I was going to ask you if you could show us how to save one of our actors in that box, because that literature seemed a little confusing to me.
Yes. So now I've got a user actor. I'm going to rename this. Actually, I'm going to rename this delete me, so I delete it. And then I'm going to move something. I'm going to save and update all, just so it actually gets this name. And so I can right click on it and I can save user actor to document toolbox, which will just store it with the document forever. Or I can send it to the global toolbox, and the global toolbox is available to every Isadora document you open on this computer.
And I do a lot of work with OSC coming from the Lightboard, and I have an actor that I use, and I have used that across Isadora patches, I think, for 6 years. So it really helps to put stuff in the global toolbox.
Yeah, that little delay gate one is probably one of the ones I use most often. But yeah, you can see I've got a whole bunch of user actors here. A whole bunch of them are IZMap. Some functionalities I made myself. There's a whole bunch of MIDI show control and MIDI time code ones that I've created. And slow colorizer. All sorts of fun stuff. This one is for OSC control with the Wii remote. So you've got all the different buttons on a Wii remote, because you can name these inputs and outputs whatever you want. If you go into here and you just double click on the input, you can now name this Frank.
And that's what's fun about the community as well, that there's so many of these just floating around out there that you can, somebody may have done the thing you're looking for. You can pick it up, bring it into your patch. You don't have to do it from scratch.
Yep. And to segue into control panels, so here I've got another thing that can send Zoom chat. So unfortunately, it's not going to be visible to people who are not in Zoom. But if I go to the View menu and show Actor Control Split, now I can see the control panel on the left, and I can see the scene editor on the right. And so I'm going to create an edit text control. And this works the same way as the actor toolbox. It's just a list. There are fewer controls than actors, so you don't need to search for them over there, but you can double click here.
Oh no, did we lose L?
Oh, I thought that was just me.
No, I think
No.
he froze.
Control.
Oh, there we go. Got you back.
There we go.
Back.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm back. Sorry, I left. Where did I leave you?
Just introducing the different control options from the left-hand panel.
Okay, so you can select, this is your array of controls. And just like over here, I can search for the crop actor by double clicking. I can search over here for the button control by double clicking and searching. So I've got an edit text control and I've got a button control, and they've both got control IDs, which can be linked to actor properties. So one way to do this is you can click on that little box and drag it across. And now there's a little one tag over here. Or on these properties, you can click and there's the property inspector that says control ID link. And so I can type the number 2 in there. And now it's going to be linked to that button. And if you want to remove it, a control link, you just put 0 in there. That's one that tripped me up in the very beginning. I couldn't figure out how to remove control ID links. So I'm just going to go into this button and I'm going to say don't send off, because otherwise it'll send 2 triggers, one when you send it on, one when you send it off. and it's got an off value and an on value, but I only want it to trigger once. And I'm going to rename this button Send. And I'm going to change the font size to something bigger. And now, when I type into here, it's going to show up. Let me zoom this in. So when I type into this edit text control, it's showing up in the OSC multi-transmit actor. And then I can press the send button to send that to Zoom chat. So it's a very simple intro to the control panel. Are there more questions?
So yeah, there's one more question well, there's tons more questions, but we got about 13 minutes left. I'm gonna let Diza wrap up with the last question for tonight, and then we'll get into the panelist side. We'll let Ed take charge of that with Andy and Ed taking charge of that, and then we'll wrap up for the night.
Oh, you're going to let me ask one more question. Well, isn't that nice of you, Omar? So this is from Mark Carter again here in Zoom. He's on fire tonight with the questions, that's for sure. Will Isadora accept Dante audio inputs?
I can't remember.
Oh, we stumped you. Look at us.
Audio is not a thing that I do much with Isadora. We outsourced a lot of audio testing to beta testers. If it doesn't accept Dante, then I've heard of Dante and I know it's something we've discussed, but I don't know that it's implemented yet.
Well, that's a good cliffhanger on the audio side. So Ed and Andy, I know you guys had a segment you guys wanted to do. I wanted to see if we can knock that out.
We do have audio support now, though. That's one I know we added in the recent update.
Oh, that's good. So that's multi-channel audio for Windows. So that's useful. Absolutely. Andy, did you have anything you could show us about some of the integration with Zoom OSC and Isadora?
Sure. I can knock two things out real quick. So let me switch over my video input, and then if you guys want to spotlight me for a moment, and then I'll ask you to delete it. First thing I wanted to show you is virtual theater. This is the reason Zoom OSC was created almost a year ago now, was to mount virtual shows online. Ignore my terrible programming practices and spaghetti and things like that, but I just sort of wanted to quickly recap some of the things that we talked about tonight and how I've actually used them in a show file. Over here on the left-hand side, which I'll punch in on for our friends, this user actor is ingest. This is SRT inputs from all of my actors coming in. I've converted them into NDI, and then I put them in a user actor and put that in every scene in the show. Here's general color correction for all the actors in the show, copied throughout the whole thing. So I go to a pre-show queue and tune that all there, and then it perpetuates the rest of the patch. And then the way that this director I was working with functioned, she made a lot of changes on the fly in rehearsal. So instead of having every single shot in my show linearly laid out, I let them be called as shot IDs. So give me shot A, give me shot B, give me shot D. And then the stage manager is acting like a technical director in our world of events production, just calling out the shots in any order that she wishes. And I'm taking the best ones in any order. And that was how we did the live show. So every scene in the show had its collection of available shots that were able to be called up. Actors were routed into those to populate them, could be switched over to pre-records. All the assets were designed inside of user actors, mixed media, all of that stuff was handled at this layer. So that's it in the world of sort of, live theater. On the side of Zoom control, this is where I'll ask to be unspotlit and just pinned. So thank you for that. This is Isadora can be reduced down into something that is extremely elegant in terms of its interface here. And this is a distributable thing that I can provide to a client, let's say, and allow them to very quickly get access to control different properties of Zoom. So this is just a control ID, and the actor spaghetti is all sort of behind that. And I can select users from this list, and I can see their name on a preview box. And if they happen to be a panelist like Klalik, I can go over here and I can say pin, and now I've got them behind me here. You can see in the interface that's gone to full screen. I can also send a direct message, just like we saw before, same thing that we had built, and then the send button for all of that. I can get a list of events from the hand raise event. So if some folks in the call want to raise your hands, you'll populate a second list inside of the call. There we go. And this is a sub-selectable list. So I can switch my mode over to hand raised selection, and then I can pick you from here, and I can do the same actions that I was doing before. So this is just a UI that was built on top of what we were doing, and this is something that can be handed off to video ops. They don't have to understand Isadora. They don't have to understand Zoom OSC. They just have to know when I click the name I'm looking for, I can pin the person I want, and that brings them right into a production switcher or something like that. So at the end of the day, the workflows that you end up creating with this kind of stuff is, Isadora being there either as a control surface if you don't want it to touch your frame data, which I know in our world is kind of a precious thing. What apps get to do that, and most of the time it's at the high level it's going to be hardware. So even if you don't want to have Isadora touching your frames, you can totally have it be a customized control interface from all the inputs and outputs that it has. And if you do, it can allow you to create some really cool generative effects. I use Isadora quite often with vMix as an alpha channel titler. I leave it on layer 4, and I just let it always be there pumping out alpha channel NDI. And if I have graphics or things like that in a certain section of the show, it'll just export that and it'll overlay it on top of whatever I'm doing in vMix. And it's just sitting there as my alpha title. It can be a different machine, and honestly, it's not mission critical too. If something happens to that computer, it goes down, the show goes on, the RTMP encode continues no matter what. So there's a whole bunch of different uses for it. Everything from bringing talent into it, mixing it with pre-record assets, color correction, pumping it out, to control of a Zoom call, to alpha titling, to customized presenter layouts that you don't get in the other apps. I mean, it really does do so many incredible things for our kind of business.
Another fun Zoom OSC example I just loaded in. I'm parsing the chat for the numbers 1 through 8, or the names of these virtual backgrounds that I have installed, and so you can select my background if you're in the Zoom call right now.
That's pretty cool.
That's actually really cool. I like that. That's fun. So real
And
quick.
Zoom OSC can do that actually to any Zoom OSC instance can accept that command. So if you have all of your talent running Zoom OSC, you can have different queues that change their virtual backgrounds.
Sorry, I spotlighted the wrong one. There we go. That's the one that everybody can be playing with by typing in a number. So this is definitely
rad.
something that'll be useful for theater. If you're doing virtual theater right now in Zoom, this is your scene change without having a bunch of people dressed in show blacks moving scenery around. You just change some virtual backgrounds. It's awesome.
I have a question about Andy's list. Andy, you started that with you have a video on how you created that list that you have. But as far as I know, there was some issues with it. It wasn't quite ready yet. Is that something that you're still working on? Is that something that's ready at this point? Is it something that's shareable?
It's
in the
what I love
community?
about Isadora so much is that, I published that video and the next morning I have the thing I was in need of provided.
Gotcha.
I'm due for an update video. I've been waiting for Isadora's new release because I didn't want to publish something that others couldn't follow along with because I had access to a beta version. I just need now Isadora to publish the list selector actor plugin.
Nice.
Once they release that, you'll be able to control lists from within the scene editor. And at that point, I'll make another video and I'll show everybody how to do what I just did, because it is extremely powerful to be able to just bring it into any call, and now I can mix a show. It's literally a virtual switcher that just pops into any Zoom call and figures out what's going on and gives you access.
Excellent. Thank you.
Changing the game. So real quick, we got about 3 minutes left. I want to get to my favorite part of the night, which is the positive feedback stuff. So Jay, just, we do this every night. I'd love to hear like one of your, kind of like, not to put you on the spot, right? But if you have one piece of advice to give the audience, what would it be? And then if we could hear that first, I guess, and then I'll give you some positive feedback from the audience, from Zoom, from YouTube, about what they've been saying about what you've been doing with us tonight.
Jay?
Oh, sorry, L.
Oh,
I said
sorry.
Jay.
I wasn't sure if there was someone else on the call named
Man,
Jay.
I can't even get the letter right. Holy crap.
That's bad.
It's not the first time Omar's fucked up a name, so.
Yes, I know,
okay.
but a letter, you think a letter I'd get right.
Say that word, I'm sorry.
Just
good.
one letter.
I
This
was
one letter.
genuinely confused. I wasn't sure if you were talking to
Don't
someone.
worry, I was just shocked. I messed that up. It's a letter. Wow. I mean,
My advice is forgive the profanity, but fuck around and find out. Like it's it's the best thing about Isadora is like people show things to me all the time that I never would have thought of. I love teaching Isadora to people because even if it's someone's first day with Isadora, they'll ask me questions that I never even thought about, and they'll ask me how to build things that I never would have thought of and never had thought of before. So it's what you can do with it is completely unique to you. And I mean, they're even Mark, the creator of Isadora, has been coding it and using it for 20 years. Sometimes we talk about things on the forum. It's like, wow, I never thought anyone could do that with my software. And that's the creator speaking. Like, it's just play with it and see what you can do.
awesome. No, and perfect words for the night. Fuckery. Just fuck with it and you'll figure it out. So positive feedbacks here. I just want to go into this real quick and then I'll let Ed take over. So Chuck Wojak said, boom for NDI. Ori Slater said, oh, and that's the way to do it. Awesome. Dan Harley, this is probably the coolest thing I've heard with the goldfish, which is actually pretty cool. I'm not going to lie about that. Dan Harley again says, this is probably the coolest thing. Oh, I'm sorry. That was in there twice. Nick Anderson says, amen to everything Andy just said. Mind bump and make anything and everything work. Dan Harley, one more last time. Really powerful software. Thank you. So that's a positive feedback that I found real quickly right before we started this. From me to you, man, this was great. You were super knowledgeable. I was very impressed by the software. I was definitely pulling from different resources to kind of get it all together, but Isadora looks super powerful. Andy, of course, thank you for that last demonstration there. Literally, I need to jump on the bandwagon and get going because this just literally, as you were showing, I'm like, I thought of 2 shows where that would have just made a total difference for me if I had that. So like, thank you for that. But again, I don't like talking a lot, so I'll let Ed take over, Chris or Diza, or one of you guys take over, please. I'm talking too much.
No, go, Diza. Do you have anything you want to add?
Oh gosh, you guys always put me on the spot. Well, thank you so much for the demo, Elle, and team. And thank you to all the panelists as well for joining us for another week. Engagement was definitely high today. And I did already post a link to our Discord group. So if anyone wants to continue this conversation offline, we do have a dedicated group chat on Discord for tonight's show as well. And with that, I'm going to pass it on back to you gentlemen to close us out.
Great, thanks. So I just want to quickly, among the panelists, again, Disa thanked you all, and I want to say thanks again. Are there anyone who, I guess, we've heard some people who have used it. For the people who haven't used it, what are some of your quick takeaways before we wrap up? Like Brent or Iris or Justin?
I like the idea I can use it for theater and stage shows, and just sometimes when you're in theater and all the cues are flying around from all different places and the lighting and the audio and the staging are all at the same time, this actually makes it a little more streamlined and people are paying attention to the same thing and the right thing, and it's really cool.
I'm just happy that there's this many choices. Like we can go with 5 different pieces of software right now that help make our lives easier. So, and this one's just another one, and it's great. Isadora looks like a solid piece of kit, so I'll be downloading it.
Cool. And Justin?
I was going to say, well, obviously, like everybody else, I'm blown away by the modularity and just what you can do. I actually just last night was watching Andy do something using it to get MIDI over to OSC in an app, and it just bricked, the modularity you can do, and also a big nod to Troikatronix didn't come up today, but the flexibility of their licensing options are also really good for use case.
That's a great point. Yeah, we didn't get into the licensing, but I think we really scratched the surface tonight. I think we'll have to probably bring Elle back at some point and do another round of this. Also, maybe Elle, if you can join our Discord, we'll be able to get you, interacting with the rest of the community so that they can pick your brain, and then you can even see some more cool stuff that our community comes up with for using Isadora. What I'd love to do real quick though is, because we're running out of time, is I want to make sure that we thank DVE Store for their continued support. The reason you could see all of these demos in such high def, we're sending out in 1080p on all platforms, is because of our support from the DVE Store. You can visit them at dvestore.com. Tell them you saw, you heard about them from AV Tech Talks. Guy and his team are great. They'll help you out with any of the tech stuff that you need, cameras, switchers, anything. So go check them out at dvestore.com. With that, I'd be remiss if I didn't have Omar tell us about next week, what we have coming up next Monday. So Omar, can you kind of give us a little rundown on the I think it's Kevin that's coming by, right, and talking about Disguise and
Yes, sorry. So next week I'm very excited to bring in Kevin Ring from Disguise, who now is the official trainer for the Disguise program. He will be on with us next week talking about the XR, that new kind of experience everybody's doing with the XR and the whole virtual and AR reality world. He's going to do a whole demo on that for us tonight. If you guys don't know who Kevin Ring is, Kevin Ring used to be part of the Evolve Media Group. He used to be the instructor and trainer for them out in the Vegas side. We met about a few months ago, and he offered the community of AV Educate a discount for 20% on classes, which is just using the AV code. If you guys weren't aware of that, that is still available to you. But Kevin Ring is now with Disguise, and he's training people on Disguise. So if you guys want to learn more about Disguise and XR and AR and just the whole notch and unreal world that's going on right now with this whole virtual reality that's going on, tune in Monday with us and Kevin Ring in Disguise, and get it directly from one of the trainers who's in-house.
Thanks, Omar. And then can you tell us about Wednesday on the podcast? What you got coming up?
Yeah, so this Wednesday, next Wednesday in the podcast, we have a series we're going to do, a 2-part series with cover letters and resumes. We're bringing a panel of people who are also recruiters for the AV industry. So if you're looking for work, or you're looking to get yourself out there, or want to learn about your resume and how to build it up and how to get into right eyes, we're going to do that the first half of it, which would be this Wednesday, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're going to do one about resumes and cover letters. And now in particular is about what to look out for, what not to do, and kind of formatting that works well for us in the industry of the AV side, as well as connecting you immediately with the people that are there, the panel, who are AV recruiters. Then the following Wednesday, we'll talk into a little bit about the social media side and how your social media presence can affect your resumes, because when people are looking you up in this business, they're also going to search for you online. And if you got things that aren't appropriate or don't seem well, your resume is going to put it back in the bottom. And they'll explain that to you a little bit in that section the following Wednesday, and kind of how your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Twitter, your TikTok, and all those platforms that you may be on, how that could affect your job placement because of what you're posting or doing on social media. And how that now, because of the growth of social media and how it is for us, it is now part of the factor when they're hiring you. HR managers are looking at those things. They are searching you. You give a resume out, they do look up your name on Google. They do search you on Facebook. So just things to be aware about on social media, kind of things to look out for. If you're public, you maybe want to be private. Think about what your cover photos are and things like that. So not just what you're sending in a paper, but also what you're doing in the digital world, how that affects you. And again, that'll be with another panel, some from the first session, a couple new ones for the second side of this. And that's just another way to help you guys kind of get back into work, get you out there and meet some recruiters that are looking for people, and they can get you some work.
Awesome. That's a great thing. Monday nights we come here and we look at the hard skills, the tech skills, and then Wednesday night Omar looks at the soft skills that we need to all be successful in our business and grow. So thanks, Omar. That's going to be a great talk. Hey, Bodhi, let us know what you got coming up.
Absolutely. So I just posted my Twitch channel in there, and I'm actually posting another page in both of these. These are for the donations for the Extra Life, what I do for the kids. If you want to, you can. But I will tell you right now, this is some good, heartwarming, great way to end the show. Q1 of Extra Life just ended, and my channel donated $2,500 to Extra Life to help with kids in the local hospital. So that's amazing in itself. Still working on getting switches for the kids, but that's all through personal donations, and personally I could give two rat's ass if that happens. I'm just happy about the money that goes through the Extra Life, honestly. So thank you all, whoever it is. I know we had an anonymous donation in there of $1,000. So whoever donated that, I greatly appreciate it. I don't know who you are, if you're here part of this community or you're part of my Twitch community. Either way, Y'all are amazing for everything you guys do and being here and working with us.
That's awesome, Chris. Thanks, man. So I know this everything we learned tonight went really fast. So what I'm going to make sure we do is I'm going to make sure that all the links to all of the things that Elle talked about end up in our Discord. So if you're not part of the Discord, I just posted the link again. I know Disa posted it a couple times for us. I wanted to make sure it got in there one more time. Join us on Discord to continue the conversations. There's channels for our past episodes. There's channels for the upcoming episodes. And there's just a huge community of people helping each other. I've been watching how our community, someone will post a question and they'll get, a handful of answers. And every once in a while, someone will actually direct message me. And I'll say, hey, just post it in the group, and then I'll give it a nudge. And it's worked out great where members are helping members and everyone's kind of sharing knowledge and growing, which was kind of the whole point of this little project, of AV Tech Talks and AV Educate. It's everybody helping each other. So with that, I want to thank Chris and Omar and Disa. I want to thank Elle, Andy, Ray, Brent, Iris, Justin, Talalik. Great job, guys. Thank you guys for being here, making another great episode of AV Tech Talk. And thank you all for attendees who are here, everybody who's watching on YouTube or Facebook, or if you're watching the replay. We get a lot of replays. I know 7 o'clock Eastern time US isn't conducive for people maybe in Australia and other parts of the world. I get messages all the time. Hey, when are you going to be on my time? And sorry, we live here, but you can watch it anytime on a replay. So go check it out on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever you're comfortable. And if you can make it with us live, come on live. If you want to be on the panel, send us an email, info@aveducate.com. And we'll get you on the panel. Tonight, first-time panelist Talalik, who was a longtime viewer. Same with Ray. Thank you guys for joining us. And hope you guys will make it back. So with that, we ran a little over because we started a little late with our technical difficulties. We want to make sure everybody gets enough time to head over to office hours. They're still doing Monday nights. So if you want to tune into that, go check it out. But for now, we're going to say goodnight to Facebook and YouTube lands. We'll see you all next week on AV Tech Talks. Ooh, I actually have to select the right thing before I can get rid of everyone. There we go. Bye now.